Alright, so now that you've got a little idea of what goes on in the front end of Wattmon, I'm going to give you a little tour of how things run behind the scenes. The settings menu has a bunch of options to control different things and set up the main areas of Wattmon. I wanted to introduce you now to the devices. Devices in Wattmon are in fact Modbus RTU attachments which plug into the device bus. They can be either single function or multifunction devices. In this case, I have here two different current sensor devices, one which measures the solar DC input to the battery, and the other one which measures bidirectional DC, which is for the load. I also have a relay device which I've developed, which I use to switch on or off the inverter based on the criteria which are set in the roles, in the actions, So here you can see if I want to modify something, I can go to the action and I can say configure. Every device has an ID. This is a Modbus ID, so I can change it if I want to anything. I can give this guy a name if I want to change it. For example, solar current. And I can choose a role for the device. Now every device has one or more roles. A current sensor device can either be a solar DC input device, a charger input, a bidirectional input, an output only, or a bidirectional DC not connected to the battery, which in this case will then not affect the amp hour count of the battery based on the readings, or an AC current monitor. Once I'm done, I can also choose the pole interval, how many milliseconds between reads to the device, whether it's enabled or disabled, and when I'm done, update the settings. Once settings are saved, they're immediately effective. So if I go back to my list, I can see that, well, the name is wrong, so let me change it again quickly, sorry. Configure. I didn't like that much. So current. There you go. Update the settings and go back. Now you have the new device. So devices have a bunch, one or more roles. Roles are predefined actions or inputs or outputs which can be used in the system. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to define and explain the actions which I use to keep my battery topped up. Under actions, I've got 4 different actions defined. One which I call nighttime charge top up, which is active or disabled between 6 in the morning and 7 in the evening. Got another one, nighttime top-up stop, which is disabled between 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening, and a daytime stop, which is active during the day, between 7 and 8 in the morning. So what do each of these do? The nighttime top-up start basically makes sure that the battery charger switches on whenever the battery percent goes below a certain preset value. All actions have a name here. You can choose when the action should be active, so when any of the conditions match, all of the conditions match, how long to wait when a condition is actually matching before it executes the action, whether the action is disabled, always enabled, enabled during a time range shown below, or in this case disabled during a time range, which is during the day. What happens? Here you can choose one or more actions, one or more events, actions, or whatever to set when this action matches. So for example, I have one action called switch on, and I chose the role relay for main inverter input, which I've already defined earlier in my devices. I can edit this and I can say either switch off, switch on, send an email, send a request, set a global variable, or execute a script. If it's set to a switch on or off, I can choose from the various roles which I have in my system. In this case, I'm going to use the same one which I had. And what conditions make this action occur. So I've got 3 conditions here, the most important one being the system variable battery charge percent, which is a calculated variable and tells you the charge state between 0 and 100%, is less than the fixed value 90. If I want, I could just modify this and I could turn this to say 80, in which case the battery would be discharged more than it does now before it switches on. I have here a global variable mode, which is actually 0 automatic or 1 manual, so I've left it here to 0. And I only want to do this when the input is off, I wouldn't want to rerun the action when the input was already on. So I say when the device variable relay for main inverter input is equal to fixed value 0, and update the settings. So this takes care of switching on the inverter and the charger when the battery state goes below 90%. Similarly, I have a nighttime top-up stop, which I'm going to edit here, just to show you. Again, when any of the conditions below match, in this case disabled during the daytime, switch off the relay for the main inverter when the battery charge percent is greater than fixed value 95%. So this basically will create kind of a hysteresis where the battery voltage will basically fluctuate, but the charge state will go progressively between 90 and 95% when there's no sun. That's during the night between 7 in the evening and 7 in the morning.